Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'd like to welcome the members of Subcabinet and staff to today's meeting, as well as all the members of the public watching on YouTube. We do have a quorum, and I'd like to call the School Safety Subcabinet to order. Do we have any additions to the minutes?
So our meetings are live streamed, so it'd be additions to the agenda.
I'm sorry, any additions to the agenda?
Oh, sorry, I was waving at Secretary Beatty.
Okay. Good morning. I thought you had an addition. All right.
No.
Well, I would like to introduce a new member of the subcabinet. Dr. Jones is the Deputy Secretary in the Maryland Department of Health within the Behavioral Health Administration, and she'll be standing in as the designee for Secretary Schrader. I've had the privilege of working with Dr. Jones on our mental health initiative, and we're very lucky to have her here with us. Good morning, Dr. Jones.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here as well.
It's really nice that we're convened here today, safely in person, once again, for our first in-person meeting since January of 2020, if you can remember back when. And I very much appreciate that opportunity to be with everyone for what will be my last meeting as the state superintendent. It's been a privilege to serve as the chair of this group, and I'm very, very proud of the things that the center has been able to accomplish under Director Hession's leadership. And over the past 3 years, we've seen the incredibly consistent implementation of the Safe to Learn Act alongside the subcabinet and the advisory board. And I know that I'm confident that going ahead we'll have the same kind of great leadership, and the center will continue to grow, and we'll be able to provide the amazing supports to all of Maryland's school systems and students. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Director Hession to recognize another valuable member of the advisory board.
I apologize. Are we talking about Representative Mr. Jim Hawk?
We're talking about Jay Shree.
Oh, I apologize. Yes, so Jay Shree is not able to attend us. I was confusing the subcabinet with the advisory board. So Jay Shree Srinivasan is the student member of our School Safety Advisory Board. She has ended her term, so she will be transitioning. Unfortunately, she will not be here today. She actually has an AP exam today. So she's now stuck for 2 hours. She was hoping to be here. We are also going to be transitioning our representative from the Maryland Association of School Resource Officers. So John Carrier will be transitioning. So by September, for the next advisory board meeting, we will have 2 new members. So I apologize.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so the next part of the agenda, we're going to have updates from the center, and I'm going to turn it back over to Kate.
Sure, thank you. So since we last met, the team's been working on quite a few initiatives, and I'm going to let them talk through some of the programs that they have. Very quickly on the legislative session. So the legislative session was extremely active, I think, for all of us. There were no major bills or legislation that impacted the center. There were a couple of minor ones related to education and public safety. The very good news about the legislative session is none of the bills that would have removed school resource officers from our schools passed. So that's a positive thing. As everyone knows, the Safe to Learn Act of 2018 does not require SROs in our schools. It only requires that they have adequate coverage. So the law is already drafted, the law is already drafted with built-in flexibility. So that's really good news from the legislative session. Again, there were a couple of public safety and education bills that are going to require us to update our SRO training. You're going to hear from Mike later. He's going to talk about where we are with the SRO training and where we're going. There were 2 grants that are currently administered or were being administered by the Interagency Commission on Public School Construction, the IAC. Those are going to be transitioning to us. We're still sort of getting our feet under us as it relates to those 2. So we're meeting with the IAC, Bob and his team and Kim on Thursday to talk through how we're going to implement those. There was a joint chairman's report that was added to the center's responsibility. We have to submit a report By December 1st of 2021, which is this December, we're going to be collecting data from our school systems on their current emergency notification and panic button systems, the time lapse between the emergency event and notification to stakeholders. And by definition, their stakeholders are faculty, staff, law enforcement, 911, and then the extent of the information that's actually broadcast in those alerts. So that'll be something we'll be collecting from the school systems over the next few months. Some updates on the advisory board. We already talked about the member transitions. Over the first part of the year, the advisory board broke out into smaller groups. They wanted to dig into some individual topics that they did in smaller, I think it was about 8 per group. So they talked about community connections, so how the individual schools and our school systems can connect to the bigger community. Second, the lessons learned from COVID, as well as the lessons learned from the Safe to Learn Act. So some really good discussions, some really good conversations, and some really good recommendations and outcomes from that. But if there is anything that the subcabinet would like the advisory board to tackle, their next meeting is in September. So we can give them things over the summer to think about. So in preparation for their September meeting. So if there's anything in particular you want them to address or think about, please let us know and we'll share that. Unless there's any questions about any of that, we can transition over to the next agenda item.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any questions for Kate? All right. So we're going to have an update on the student focus group.
I'll wait for Craig. If you could display my slideshow.
They have the slides in front of them. They'll get them up.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Allen Lute. I'm the Communication and Media Specialist at the Maryland Center for School Safety. And we kind of added another hat to that title, which is I have the honor of working with 11 incredible students in the student focus group. So just a little bit of background on that student focus group. It started in 2020. We just talked about how awesome Jayshree is, and Jayshree Srinivasan kind of came to MCSS and said, hey, I think you need to have student buy-in in some of the things. I think you need a student voice. And we obviously agreed. And so we had 11 members, which was fantastic, mostly juniors and seniors, but we had representation from both the public school systems and the private school. So just there we have Prince George's County, Washington County, Baltimore, Frederick, Howard, Hartford, Montgomery, Charles, Carroll, St. Mary's, which is our private school representative, and then Anne Arundel County. And so just to give everybody kind of a background, MASC, which is the Maryland Association for Student Councils, really kind of was able to get this program jump started when they did. It was right around when we started to unfortunately shut down due to COVID. They picked up the baton and they marched forward, and they were able to get 11 incredible students taken care of. So you kind of look at what we see here, gave you just a couple of quick little data points. So 11th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 12th grade are kind of where they are. So then it came to MCSS. Now it's kind of our turn to take the lead. So we didn't have an application process, so we had to actually develop an application process, an interview process, kind of all of the bells and whistles that MASC kind of helped us with. And so then we decided we were going to do a rolling admission process, only because we had heard from MASC and they had said, you know, they waited a really, really long time before they were able to reach back out to the students. And a lot of students started to go in other directions and pursue other different things within their school curriculum, within their academics, within their extracurriculars. And we obviously want them as soon as we can. So we did a rolling admission process. There was a few lessons learned with that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we also decided we wanted to include the middle school students and the high school students. Those middle schoolers are so creative, and we think there's a lot of potential there too. And plus we thought getting the idea of school safety in the minds of our younger students is going to make them feel more secure as they make that transition from middle school to high school. So we decided this time we were going to assign county representation, just because we only had 11 last time and we weren't able to hear as much from the western side of the state, or the lower eastern shore, the upper eastern shore. Applications were sent out to all of our stakeholders when it came time for promoting it. We sent it out on social media, we sent it out on our website, we did a blog post about it. And then finally, once the application was all put together, we sent it out in December of 2020. And then that's when we started to review the applications from January all the way until March. We had quite a few very interested candidates who all share a passion for school safety, which at the end of the day, that really made you feel good knowing that these students really care about what happens in their schools. And then the selection process was on April 1st. So just a little bit about what that process looked like. So first of all, if you went to the website and you clicked on the advisory board, there's a student focus tab, and they had to fill out a really quick essay talking about why school safety is important to you. So it wasn't just, sign up, put it in a box and we'll randomly see what happens. It was, a very thoughtful process. They also used references. So this was a really great opportunity for them to figure out who are those representatives in the school that I look up to that can help me. And additional other information, a couple other quick little essays in there. Then virtually we met and we decided to do interviews with each one of the students. The MCSS Communications and Engagement Manager, as well as myself and our student focus group lead, which was Jayshree, all sat down and we had 7 questions, and basically we scored each of those questions based on their response. So very similar to how a state job is. We really wanted students to have an equal playing field all across the board. And then the approval process, we did a really quick reference check. A lot of them put in, teachers or advisors, and when it came out clean and we felt really confident with this particular student, then they were approved and they got the information for what's the next step, the next meeting. So what went well? So what went really well, I think, is the transition process going from the Maryland Association for Student Councils to MCSS. We were able to respond quicker to those students. We were able to set up a process, which MASC said they were kind of trying to figure out what should the process be while also trying to be a student. And it gave us time to invest in those students. We did a lot of outreach. We were able to get on the phone call with all of our partners, SROs, mental health coordinators, and really kind of get the message out there. Again, social media partners, actually, we put together a really quick press release to make sure people knew that this was happening. And we believe because of that outreach, we were able to get 83 applications, which all were reviewed. And we were able to create that process for future student focus groups. So what things we want to change? While we love the idea of the rolling admission process, there was a ton of last minute applications on that Sunday night. And we wanted to make sure that we were getting the best students. And so when we had these last 17 students come through, we already had some students that were kind of already in place. And so obviously we sent out a, thank you very much for your time and consideration. Please make sure to apply in the future. If we could take them all, we probably would. Improvements, we want to make sure that next year we have a application sent out a little bit later in January as opposed to December. And then we want to actually end the application period a little bit sooner too. So that way the time window is a little bit tighter and the students who are truly interested in it will use that time efficiently. Also, we want a deadline and review all of the applications a little bit sooner. Like I said, even us in the MCSS and also with Jayshree, was just really overwhelming to spend that much time in one thing, which is why I said I kind of put on that second hat of liaison for MCSS, because a lot of my time and dedication was to that and making sure that that process went as smoothly as possible. And we want to be able to go through all of those applications and then go ahead and have those interviews so that all the applications are in, we can read them all, then we can select them and move forward. And again, like I said, just having that decision a little bit sooner for students so that they can make those decisions. We noticed a lot of government related things, those deadlines were kind of in March. And so a lot of students weren't sure if they wanted to apply for this or apply for that. But thankfully, a lot of the students who actually did get into the student focus group decided to pull back on those extracurricular activities so that they could focus on that, which was great for us. We did notice that there was a bit of a lag in, and maybe not so much lag, but there was quite a difference between the number of female students who applied versus the male students who applied. So we're looking for new and varied ways that we can get the male, those who identify as male, involved in the student safety realm. We did have a few. And then, like I said, time commitment, not just to MCSS, but to that student focus group lead. There was a lot of time dedicated to that. And thankfully, J3 had a very flexible schedule, but we obviously don't want to put that much pressure on our students. So just to give you a really quick overview of what this next incoming focus group looks like, we have, like I said, 83 applications. We reviewed and interviewed 52 applicants. We had 26 members that we ended up accepting. We originally thought we were going to limit it at 24, but when an application just stands out to you and you go to bed at night and you're thinking about that student, you know that that student belongs where they are. We were able to add 2 more people to our private school representation. And then of course we have 23 public school. And there's just a kind of a little bit of a breakdown from the 10th graders all the way down to the 6th graders. So a little bit about kind of what the application process is and what we are looking for. So we gave people an opportunity to identify if they wanted to be identified as male or female or no ID. So there's some numbers there where you definitely see that female difference compared to the male difference. And then of course, I got asked even by my own team, can you give us kind of a little bit more of a breakdown from racial identification? So we do have that. Quite a few are white, but we are happy that we have the diversity that we have on this team. We really do feel like it truly is a great representation of Maryland's brightest. And then just a little bit of a breakdown here with the counties. We have quite a few people from Frederick County and Baltimore County. That Baltimore County one, my colleague Sandy Caldwell and I actually did a presentation about Safe Schools Maryland together. And they said, how do we get involved with MCSS? And so I sent out the student focus group information. And then the next day I just got slammed with a bunch of people coming in from Baltimore County, which was very exciting. And so then down below there, you see students from a different county. So what this basically means is if that particular county is in white, that means that student is from that county. If it is in orange, that means we assigned them to that particular county. And I will say, we did talk to the students ahead of time to say, are you comfortable representing this county? And they would say, yes, I have friends or I hear issues there. I'd be happy to do so. And with that, I can take any questions.
Questions for Emily? Thank you very much for that presentation, Emily. All right, now we're going to go with the grants update. So
Gifty is virtual.
Gifty is virtual.
She's our test for virtual.
Already.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the Subcabinet. My name is Gifty Kwashi. I'm the fiscal and grants analyst here. I just wanted to provide a very general overview of the fiscal year 21 grant activities today. As you all know, we administered 3 grants this fiscal year: the hate crimes grant, which had an appropriation of $2 million, the SRO grant, which had an appropriation of $10 million, and the Safe Schools Fund grant, which had an appropriation of $600,000. So the document that you have provides a year-to-date update on all of those grants. And among the 3 grants that we administered this fiscal year, the SRO grant has seen the smallest reimbursement request to date. And the limited reimbursement requests are primarily due to the grant recipient's inability to fully utilize the grant funds. Of course, the pandemic still having an impact, of course, and the fact that, schools remain virtual. So it prevented the SRO grant from being used as was intended. With that said, the hate crimes grant, we did award the full $2 million. And as of today, we have received about $802,000 in reimbursement requests, which represents about 40% of the total amount of grant awarded. The grants require a quarterly progress report, which demonstrates to us that the grant recipient is using the grant as is intended, and that grant activities are being pursued in a timely manner. And so the hate crimes grant, in the first quarter, we received 100% quarterly progress report, which represent 100% compliance in how the grant is being utilized. In the second quarter for the hate crimes grant, we received about 91% of all of our quarterly progress report. We had 4 out of the 43 grant recipients who have not yet submitted their quarterly report, and we are doing everything, reaching out to them to make sure that prior to the end of the grant period that they submit their quarterly report. It's important to note that if any grantee is deemed to not be in compliance, we do not reimburse any of their reimbursement requests before we receive all of the reporting that is required as part of the grant. As far as the SRO grant is concerned, we did award $4.7 million of the $10 million that was appropriated. And as of today, we have received about $571,000 in reimbursement requests. As far as quarterly progress reports are concerned, due to the timing of the NOGAs for this particular grant, no quarterly report was required in quarter one, but in quarter two, we did receive about 87% of the quarter two grant progress report that was required. We had about 3 out of the 23 grant recipients who did not submit. And again, we are working with them to make sure all of the missing reports are submitted. Quarter 3 and quarter 4 reports are in progress, of course, and the same applies to the hate crimes grant, by the way. Finally, the Safe Schools Fund grant, this was the first year that we only had $600,000 in available funds to award. And I'm happy to say that while the per school system allocation was much smaller than in previous years, which was $25,000 per school system, we have seen very efficient use of the grant funds. There were projects that were ready from the very beginning. So we have about 4 school systems who have fully utilized their grant funds and have already submitted final report, and project is done. The rest of the school systems do have up to December 31st of this year to fully utilize their grant funds. As was in the case for the SRO grant, we did not require any quarter one quarterly report, again, due to the time period for when the NOGAs were issued. But for quarter 2, we did receive about 96% compliance in the progress reports that were submitted. We only had 1 school system that did not submit as was required, and we are working with them as well to make sure that they meet all of the reporting requirements of the grant. And as is the case with the other grants, we have not yet fully compiled the quarter 3 progress reports, and quarter 4, of course, will be submitted at the end of June. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Questions for Gifty on the grant progress spending?
So I would like to say, Dr. Salmon, if you don't mind. So as you know, in the Safe Schools Fund, we fund both safety and security projects in the past. We've also been funding mental health initiatives. Obviously, with the funding drop, the drop from the $10 million down to $600,000, that's created a strain. But I didn't know if you wanted to take a few moments and talk about your announcement last week with Governor Hogan on Project Bounce Back, as well as the state mental health crisis teams.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And before we go on, Gifty, I just wanted to say, keep on track with these. I know school systems right now are really overwhelmed with funding because they've received their, CARES Act funding, the ESSERS 2, ESSERS 3. It's a lot of money. It's an additional about $5,000 per pupil. And they have different timing scenarios to spend those funding, anywhere from 22, 23, and 24. So just keep on top of it and make sure that we don't let it get too far down the road. They know that they have till, December to spend these funds, and we want to make sure they use them in the way that they have said that they would in their grant. So just a caveat there.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So, so one of the things that we know about our students since the beginning of the pandemic is most of our school systems are back in person, anywhere from 20% of the students all the way up to 80% of the students. And we know that right now there are about close to 500,000 students who have not stepped foot in school since the end of March of 2020. And we know from the emails and the parent emails and even student emails across the last year and a half that they are suffering with many mental health issues. And I've also had many, many communications from pediatricians across the state who are also seeing many, many patients that require medication and hospitalization because of depression and anxiety. And these are, students that were okay before, and we also have kids that weren't okay before that have become even more troubled during this time of social isolation. So we, at the State Department of Education, as systems got pass-through money, we also got what's called state set-aside money. And I've decided to take a portion of that state set-aside money and create 6 regional mental health crisis centers across the state. And the idea came from this subcabinet. This is a very efficient way to provide school safety across the state. So why not expand this idea to doing mental health the same way? So we envision, and we've been working on this since February, we have a meeting every other Friday, and Kate sits on this committee, and Dr. Jones. We just had a meeting about this last week, and I appreciate your guidance and assistance as well from the Maryland Department of Health. We are working on setting the structure for this to be in place by September. And so we envision having 6 centers, and they're regionally spaced based on the student population, school population. And they will function with a psychiatrist, with mental health clinicians, with social workers, with family navigators, and many, many other support systems to provide not only crisis help in a situation, like I'll give the example when we had the shooting at Great Mills, the School Center for School Safety basically descended upon the county to provide whatever crisis assistance was needed, and it was months of providing assistance. The same kind of thing hopefully will not happen again, but we need these folks to be around when school starts in September. There is not enough mental health services across the state right now. And so one of the other things we're going to be doing is having MOUs with universities to promote grow your own programs for mental health folks and putting out grants to provide funding for these people to go to school, and then giving them a place to be, to do their service to get certified. So there's a lot to do, but we've had many, many presentations and many ideas shared among the state. We have a group of about 30 very, very knowledgeable people that are helping us with this. And there's a lot more work to be done, but we are going to be putting about $30 million towards this initiative over the next 2.5 years. And I envision that it can be something that works very closely in concert with the school safety subcabinet and advisory board. So more on that later, but we're very excited about it. And every time we talk about it, we get positive reinforcement, not only from students. We have 2 students on our group that's meeting every other week, and they actually were with me last week with the announcement. The other piece of Project Bounce Back is the money for ACEs and providing training for folks, and it's in conjunction with the Boys and Girls Clubs, which I don't know if you know this, but they've been around for about 160 years. So they're second in line to public schools, which are more like 300 years. But they're a great group of people. They provide a tremendously needed service for children. And so we're very excited to be working with them as well on this initiative. And we are using 10 million of our state set aside money to assist that initiative as well. So very exciting.
It is.
And I will tell you that the reason I came up with the idea was because a student Googled me and reached out for help the morning that I was to start talking with senior staff about how to spend these funds. And I just came together and said, wow, we need to do this. We've got kids that really need help. So I'm excited about it. And as I said, I'm hoping that it's ready to go in September. So thanks for that opportunity. Okay, so now we're going to invite Mike to come up and give us an update on SRO training. So Mike, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, ma'am.
Yes.
Good morning, members of the Subcabinet. I'm glad to see you all in person and live and be here with you today, finally. So just an update on our mandated SRO and SSE training. The pandemic brought unique challenges, as you know, to our training. In compliance with Governor Hogan's executive orders beginning March of 2020, we were no longer able to provide live classes for our trainees. This brought us to a dead halt on day 3 of 5 of training at Bowie State University. We were in the process of training officers at that time. Gatherings were also limited for trainees. Virtual platforms such as Zoom, Google Meets, and Microsoft Teams were in infancy stages. The STLA did not put contingencies into place to halt training, and we did not know then and still do not know if or when our schools will return to what we knew as normal schedule and occupancy. For this reason, much like the local school systems, the MCSS had to pivot. We needed to develop a new way to train officers. This was a challenge because of COMAR section 120401, which regulates police training. Independent electronic learning, or what we know as asynchronous training, is limited to a maximum of 3 hours training per session for police officers. As you know, our course is 35 hours. Through many conversations with the Maryland Police Training Commission, we were able to receive special permission to train SROs with our 35-hour curriculum in small segments asynchronously and provide a cumulative test. That's normally not the case. This was the answer that we needed to proceed and continue to meet the mandate. We immediately went to work on turning our lessons and PowerPoints into videos. We created a YouTube training channel to house our videos. We utilized Edpuzzle to put intermittent questions on the videos as the trainee progressed and provide accountability and safeguards that ensure the trainee cannot skip or minimize the videos during training. Finally, we stood up our Schoology learning management system to provide and document all training sessions. By August of 2020, navigation of the pandemic allowed for social distancing, mask wearing, and temperature taking. We were able to provide a pilot class in Cumberland, Maryland to test the system. My colleague, Mr. Jim Hott, the Western Maryland representative, and a trainer for the program, proctored the class in a computer lab so we could test it. We were successful, and by September 2020, we offered a full launch of our police independent learning program for our trainees statewide. In the fall of 2020, we trained 126 combination school resource officers and security personnel. Since January of 2021, we trained an additional 35. Since the inception of the program, we've trained a total of 1,184. School safety coordinator certifications were also put onto this platform, and we have completed 22 of those. We provided a mental health in service for Prince George's County Public Schools Security Department for 63 individuals. And through use of these platforms, we have stood up a webinar called Understanding the Role of the School Resource Officer. And since 2020, August of 2020, we've trained 632 people nationwide. So where do we go from here? With the pandemic guidelines easing, our special permission for the use of police electronic learning for trainees is expiring. Due to positive progress in the use and development of online video conferencing platforms, we are now pivoting to the use of these platforms to deliver synchronous instruction. Our latest class of trainees graduated this past Friday. The class was delivered over Zoom, and new interactive applications were used to engage trainees and invite participation. 15 new SROs are now trained and ready to go into our schools. This year, we saw several legislative initiatives to remove SROs from our schools or limit their interactions with students. This provided the MCSS with the opportunity to explore better ways to train SROs, better topics to train them in, and a self-assessment of our training. As I'm sure you're aware, the Maryland Model SRO SSE training quickly has become a national model for training SROs. Social emotional learning inclusive curriculum for SROs and SSE basic training was one of the first in the country. A deeper dive in realization of legislative and community concerns and desires has inspired us to do even better. Our curriculum is required to be renewed by the Police Training Commission and recertified in April of 2022. At this point, we've decided to move our trajectory from training just giving SROs and SSEs an overview of critical topics to increasing our training by an additional 35 hours for SRO and SSE basic training. It will give them a deeper understanding of youth and practical skills necessary to implement many of the topics that we already trained them in. The following topics will be added or expanded. Restorative approaches will be expanded from an overview to a practical ability. Implicit bias will be expanded for deeper learning. Crisis intervention will be newly added. De-escalation will be expanded from an overview to a practical ability. We're having a class created by our partners at Anne Arundel Public Schools called Normative Adolescent Behaviors. Trauma-informed care will be expanded for a deeper learning. Currently, all of the topics above are in various stages of development. We've reached out to our local school systems, hospitals, advocacy groups, and associations to provide subject matter experts to work with us in developing the best training possible for SROs and SSEs. We also will be providing more interactive skills, and we'll be building this through the development and use of video scenarios that will allow the trainees to analyze and provide solutions. The final output for this new 70-hour basic training program will provide through a combination of pre-class work, synchronous virtual training, and live training, our goal of training SROs and SSEs. The expanded training will allow us to best meet the needs of our SROs and SSEs and ensure that we continue to be a leader in the nation for this type of training. Finally, in order to maintain continuity of training, the MCSS will be developing and providing yearly reoccurring training for SROs and SSEs. We're still developing the process, and we will not know the total hours of the reoccurring training that we will be providing until the new classes are developed. Our intent is to first train all of our previous trainees with the portions of the training that are new and are being developed. This will maintain consistency and continuity for the SROs and SSEs throughout the state of Maryland. Thank you for allowing our team and me to be a part of this, and we look forward to the future of training.
Thank you, Mike. That was an excellent presentation. I'm so encouraged, especially by your news that it's nationwide. I mean, that's exciting. And are we profiting from that in any way? I mean, it's terrible to say you don't want to sell something really good, but
No, but the school resource officers in the nation are, so.
good. Well, that's good. I just think it's wonderful, and excited that you've been able to move into the 21st century. The idea of scenario training is especially effective, and I think that it will really benefit our SROs. I've been out and about visiting all of our schools since September, and this month I think I have 12 visits scheduled, and I've done the other half prior to this. And one of the things that's always been so exciting for me is walking in the front door and being able to shake hands with one of the SROs who are right there at the door, talking to students in the hallway, And it's just really great to see them in action. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You started this whole thing. You
did.
started, you made the curriculum. You started this whole process.
Yeah, I was going to say that we're not for Mike, we would not
That's
be where
right.
we are.
That's
so.
right. So we're all very proud of you and we thank you for your service to our state.
Thank you very much.
Let me just say that I also was very encouraged at your very respectful response to the concerns that came out, not just from the legislature, but, many of the people in our community. So, taking it very seriously and re-looking at your training options and then really building on the strength that you already have. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I also wanted to recognize, because we didn't earlier, Mr. Hawk, who's sitting in for Colonel Jones. Good morning, sir, and thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now we're going to move on to another exciting presentation about emergency plans, and we're happy to have Ronald here today to give this update. Good morning, Ronald.
Good morning. Good to see everybody again. It's
Good to see you
been
too.
too long. So let's talk a little bit about emergency plans. So in your packet, there's an executive summary we put together. It goes into some detail. I'm going to hit the highlights here for you. So I think many of you are aware the Safe to Learn Act mandated that in August of last year, we collect emergency plans from all over the state, every school, their plan, and that we were to review and comment on. And that we're hoping that periodically thereafter that we're going to keep getting those. So as part of that process, we had to set up, a process, and that involved some of our folks, Gsem from our group, putting together a portal and a way to actually, for everybody to access and review these, because there were going to be well over 1,000 of them, and we knew that was going to be a big chore. So, but all of our regional staff were tasked with looking at the school plans for their region, which included 4 counties. Or in Nito's case, that's 8. So we developed a portal where they could upload all these plans. And that was a bit of a chore because some of them had a couple hundred at least. So we got that done. It automatically imported in the checklist. And the checklist consisted of 19 criteria that we carefully selected from. Some of them were the Safe to Learn Act requirements, and there are 4. They're spelled out. There's some additional that are really essential to a basic plan. There's some others that are considered functional annexes, which are those basic functions like evacuation that you could do in different kinds of events, but it's the basic function. And then there are some specific to specific threats or hazards. There's a couple that we thought were most important. Came up with 19. And over the course of the fall, we reviewed all those plans. And the highlights of that are under the results there. To start off with, overall, I thought the plans were very complete. They kept up with best practices. They contained everything they should have for the most part, and they were well organized. So that somebody picking up one for the first time, which we were, could find things they were looking for fairly quickly. Many of them were based off master templates that the counties had provided, and that the schools would fill out site-specific information with regard to things like evacuation sites, contact information, who was going to be in which role in the ICS system, and all of them were, mentioned that process, which is a very good way to manage emergencies. And so we went back and basically crunched the data. And what's next in this report is essentially what we found to be missing, starting in the descending order there from like the most prevalent that was missing, and then on down to something at the bottom where 1.6% of plans were missing accommodations for students with disabilities. That small number, only 22, I believe, was just the result of schools that didn't quite fill out everything they should have. The templates that the counties had all contained those accommodations. And there were a few others missing. We took the most prevalent procedure we found to be missing was procedures for extracurricular events, after school events, that kind of thing, or field trips, which was something that we took from the safety evaluation summaries that we collected a couple years ago. And we looked at that, and they mentioned in their trends for policies and procedures, it was mentioned that they needed more training in their emergency plan, but they also mentioned that they were missing plans for extracurricular activities. So we put that was one of those criteria we wanted to look for to see how many actually had that. About 30% don't. So what's coming back from that is, what's going back to them, our feedback, is a dashboard, which they've all now gotten, and we'll be reviewing with their regional staff member from our group, for comments and for maybe some suggestions on how to complete that. We got some great examples from around the state. There were some that covered every base, did a great job. So, and there's a lot of models out there that are well recognized, and they have a lot of things they can look at in terms of resources to fill those out and get them done. But that dashboard, what's important about it is it's a living structure. It pulls directly from this database we put together. As they change things in the plan and as we review them, all the metrics update. It's where they're going to be depositing these plans from now on. When they make updates to them, they can put them directly into this tool. It's one page essentially that covers all their emergency planning and some of their other reporting requirements, including the annual report they send to us on their plan's performance, how many hours they spend in drills and exercises, that kind of thing. And it updates automatically. So one place, one-stop shop. Really happy with that. It turned out really well, and they all seem to be able to understand what it says, what it does, and how to use it. That is essentially it. We have some next steps listed at the end. The GSEM team, Grant for School Emergency Management, which comes from, was given, I guess, from MSDE to MEMA. They're currently doing training around the state. I've taken their courses, they're outstanding, to assist with the planning process. There will eventually be one-on-one with a jurisdiction that requests their assistance to bolster their plans or improve them, update them. And so that's coming down the road. That's one of their next couple of years of the grant cycle. And so there'll be assistance available to improve these plans as we go.
So Ron, I assume that dashboard is on some kind of a secure site?
Absolutely. One of the reasons we selected this tool is both in how they're transmitted, is encrypted on both ends, and how they're stored. So absolutely, they're not, and there's no data in any of the reports we've got that specific to any school or county for that reason.
Very good. Questions? Other questions?
So one of the things we'll do as it relates to the emergency plan, so in addition to the collection of the emergency plans, the facility assessments that Ron mentioned that we did back in 2018, and again, we'll continue to do. There's currently no regulations. The subcabinet has not developed any regulations around timing for that, but it is something we're thinking about. So if that is something you'd like us to continue to look at, especially related to timing, we can have that going into next year. We can have some drafts put together. But we are going to be taking the facility assessment summary reports, the emergency plans, right? So some of the gaps that they identified in the emergency plans, as well as those annual effectiveness reports that they have to submit. And we're going to be using those to help us make decisions about where grant dollars should be focused, right? Because if they're asking for things that were not included in any of that, that doesn't really make any sense, right? They should be focusing their requests for grant dollars on things where they've identified gaps. So that'll be a bigger process for us. Dino started to do some digging into that data, but we'll be able to look over year for year what they've been asking for. So hopefully it'll be more of a streamlined and cohesive process of directing funding where it should go.
That's really smart to do that. And I would suggest that you do work on a draft of timeline. I think it's important that we, have an annual update at least, and thinking, from the team, when's the best time for that?
Right.
So I think that's
We will do that.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation. A lot of hard work went into that. All right, now we're going to move into the summer conference discussion, and Craig, I think, is online up there somewhere. Hi, Craig.
Yes, I'm coming to you from the cloud. How are you?
Oh, very good.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to report that we are going to be having a summer conference this year. Last year we had a seminar series in quick reversal in response to the initial stages of the pandemic. But this year we're going to go full conference, even though it will be virtual. And it's going to be over 4 days in July 13th, 15th, 20th, and 22nd. And that's out of respect for the fact that we do believe a lot of professionals will be trying to relax and get away maybe here and there. And so if they're taking a consecutive week off, we at least wanted them to be able to catch 2 days of the conference. So, and again, it's July 13th, 15th, 20th, and 22nd. I will also say that this year's conference theme is resilience through change. And obviously, we've all had to learn how to be resilient in the last year, and we'll continue to have to do that. We're really excited about the fact that each day will be basically a 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. experience, and that this is a conference that is open to a full diversity of professionals whose roles intersect with school safety. So this would include education administrators, teachers, school psychologists, guidance counselors, school resource officers, law enforcement, local state emergency managers, fusion center analysts, crisis intervention units, counselors and mental health specialists, school social workers, school safety professionals, the whole potpourri of them. So again, we really are trying to appeal to all comers, and it's going to be a great conference. We've already announced 4 different presenters, and we hope to present on our conference website 2 more speakers each week from here on out. So we'll have actually a grand total of about 22 speakers at this year's conference. And just to give you a little sneak peek in terms of the speakers, one of our speakers is Missy Smith. She was a shooting victim in Kentucky in 1997, but her presentation is I Choose to Be Happy. And again, so that is a really harrowing, but also motivating tale of how she has taken a very tough situation and moved forward with positivity, which again, I think can be motivating for all attendees of her presentation. We also have speakers speaking about human trafficking and sex trafficking in children, new trends in substance abuse, as well as practical strategies to effectively respond to power struggles. And again, as was mentioned earlier, lots of students who were already struggling in our schools are struggling that much more now as a result of our altered landscape, and those students who were not struggling in many cases have had a really rough year. So these are timely presentations. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we'll be sharing with you over the coming weeks and months in terms of who's speaking. And again, we encourage everyone to register. I will just say the actual conference website is conference.2021.safeschoolsmd.org. And again, on that site, on that landing page, which will eventually convert to the actual conference portal. But currently that landing page is the place where you would want to check in every week to hear the latest drip content as to who will be presenting. Again, we got some great in-house speakers, amazing national speakers, and we got the whole gambit. So it's very exciting. And again, this could not be possible without my amazing colleagues. I'm not going to name them all, but Jim Hott, one of our regional professionals, is really the lead, and Jessica, who's in the room there with you today, is our jack of all trades, or Jessica of all trades. So again, I can't thank everyone enough, because it's not just them, it's everyone on the team has contributed something to this conference, and it's going to be a really great one and virtual. So it should be exciting.
Thank you, Craig. It does sound exciting, and I've enjoyed the teasers that have been sent out recently about the presenters. So I'm sure Jessica's been pushing that. So anyway, it's really going to be great. So thank you.
And share it with all your friends. Remember, it's not just you guys that we're targeting who gets the emails. You can send it to 5-10 professionals as well who may not be on our list. We greatly appreciate it.
That's a great idea. Thanks so much, Craig. Any other questions for Craig?
Yes, actually, I wanted to ask, if someone registered for the conference, but they couldn't attend on a particular day, will they be able to view the presentation at a later time?
The decision has been made at this point not to allow that. You are required when you register to register for all 4 days. However, we are very explicit that you don't need to attend all 4 days, but we just want to make sure it's reserved on your calendar. Why we're not doing that is we want to try to have as much of a preponderance of individuals there, because there will be opportunities to ask questions, and we want to try as much as possible to recreate the actual conference feel, even though we're all separated physically. Last year we did a seminar series, and it was lovely. It was 4 consecutive weeks, but we did allow that option that you just referred to, which was sort of watch it, Saturday afterward, at night, putting your feet up. And while that is great, it took away some of sort of the humanity of the conference and sort of the engagement with professionals. So we wanted to try to have the professionals feel like they need to take part and actually introduce themselves, talk to each other, see other people on the call as much as possible. So that option will not be available this year. We'll be live or you've missed it.
Unfortunately.
Thank you, Craig. That was exciting to think about the opportunities that will present for everyone. So thank you very much.
Sure.
So do we have any other business to discuss, Kate?
We do not, unless any of the subcabinet have anything that they.
Yeah, does anybody have anything they want to share? Secretary Beatty?
Yes. Yes. I have enjoyed so much working with you.
Oh,
And because I seem to be the one of the original members that is still here with you, I wanted to say that we as a subcabinet we owe you so much gratitude for all your leadership. And I think we should take a few moments to acknowledge the leadership that you have provided to us. So for the members here, the superintendent has served in this role as chair since 2018. And before that, you chaired the governing board of the Maryland Center for School Safety.
in a basement of the state.
Yeah. So as we are painfully aware, though we're very excited for you, you are moving on to the next chapter of your life. And so not only are we thankful for your career of service as an outstanding educator and education professional, but your fellow subcabinet members are grateful for your leadership in this very critical area of school safety. You have spent your whole career and also your whole life tirelessly advocating for students. And it's no surprise that you have been an extraordinary, effective champion for school safety, school resource officers, and the safety of our public, private, and non-public special education students during your time as the chair of both of these bodies. Your efforts and your accomplishments are even more impressive because during your tenure of the subcabinet, you've had some other jobs to do as well. You have gracefully fulfilled all of your responsibilities, especially during the COVID response and recovery. So we thank you so much for your wisdom and your passion for quality education for students in Maryland, and for your very steady hand, no matter how challenging the situation has been. The students, parents, educators, educational administrators, and school safety professionals have benefited and will continue to benefit from your leadership and your vision for years to come. And your discussion about the regional mental health centers is just the latest of your brilliance in how to respond to the challenges of education and school safety. So Dr. Salmon, on behalf of your colleagues, both past and present on the School Safety Subcabinet, we want to give you our congratulations for all you have accomplished, and we wish you the very best in your next phase of your life.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was so nice. Very unexpected, but thank you. So it is indeed a very emotional time, because no one wants to leave working when it's such important work. And, I don't think I can ever not work, but I guess I have to let someone else take the helm for a while, and we'll see what comes next. But I'm just really so privileged to have worked with all of you and for this great cause. And so thank you very much for those wonderful comments. And I will look forward to the things I hear and see and read about for you guys in the future, because I think you're probably going to do some amazing things for our kids. So I'm very excited. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second from Carl. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Cheryl.